Welcome friends! While I was sitting at home worrying about my future and sipping my Turkish tea, a concept came to my mind. No, not changing the color of my walls, of course. The concept was very simple. I had to completely transform Worldbox into a crazy Call of Duty style FPS game, overcome challenging levels one by one and win the game by defeating the final boss. With that nuisance called luck smiling upon me, I found a mod that turned Worldbox into a 3D game and another one that added modern weapons to the game. Of course, since the game was an entirely different genre, I encountered a series of ridiculous and nonsensical events, but I persevered and came face to face with the final boss. I am Mr. Barksdale and this is the story of how I turned Worldbox into an FPS game. Ah yes, Worldbox, that god simulation game with pixel graphics and 2D sprites. We have witnessed the lives of various civilizations in their inescapable pixel dungeons through different chains of events hundreds of times already. Well, that naturally wore down our relationship a bit. I had to change the genre of the game immediately and look at it from a different perspective. Perhaps then I could fall in love with it all over again and spend my time guiding little people to their demises instead of sitting here drinking Turkish tea and procrastinating. Alright, enough of this tea shtick. Thanks to a mod I found hidden in an abandoned corner of the internet, I immediately gave these little naive beings, trapped in an eternal drawing of the same color palette and style, a brand new look that resembled 3D. This was essential to be able to turn Worldbox into an FPS game, otherwise it would have remained a top-down ARPG. You know, like Diablo or Path of Exile. Okay, but the game was still very monotonous. Swords, axes, arrows and all that medieval junk, you know. Now that's old school stuff right there, buddy. To fix this, I also added some more modern life-ending apparatuses to the game. As the old Turkish saying goes, the rifle was invented and chivalry was ruined. Okay, but the constant clashes of differently hardened earthly materials was getting boring, buddy. Since we could now directly control our beings, I had essentially turned my game into an FPS and could fire these weapons myself, true, but as much fun as it was to shoot around randomly, this just wasn't gonna cut it. To turn Worldbox into a full-fledged FPS game, I had to create a brand new map from scratch and set my own rules. First, I created an anthill world covered with mountains. Since high summits served as good walls, I covered the surroundings with more of them and opened up some small empty areas around. After enclosing these areas with more mountains, I connected them to each other with roads. I gave one area a summer resort vibe by adding a sandy beach and a seaside to it. So what was the vision here, little buddy, you ask? Well, it was simple really. To win the game, I had to overcome these increasingly difficult areas one by one to reach the final boss area. To avoid repetition, I wanted to differentiate these last zones leading up to the final room. Therefore, I made this a more labyrinthine-like area, except for these last two large regions. Then I took a short break, during which I played around with the laws of the world a bit. After coming back, I set about giving various biome identities to all of the empty zones that I had created, aka the game levels. I use almost every type of biome in the game, except for a select few maybe. I cleared away all those old and stubborn vegetation and laid down some fresh, organic materials in their place. One detail that I spent a lot of time on were the summits, which were essentially the walls of my levels. I surrounded all the edges and corners with these summits so that the creatures couldn't escape their regions, declare war on other regions, or, you know, gossip. After all, how nerd could you gossip about people that you couldn't see? I also sprinkled some mountains here and there to add detail and variety to the levels. For now, I also closed the passages between levels with some mountains. Of course, even this much detail wasn't exactly enough. The surroundings were just too dry, which is what she said. I then used my godly juice to water the surroundings a bit and created lovely bodies of safe-to-drink water. To add a bit more dimension to this 3D space, I spread platforms of different heights here and there. After all, the more dimensions there are, the better the game is, right? Finally, my extraordinary levels were ready to be discovered with a first-person eyesight. The missing detail though was to add some cute little creatures that could ruin my beautiful artistic canvas that I had worked so much on. So I quickly filled the levels with demonic animals that would be my enemies. Bears, sheep, chickens and many more abominations. I wanted to make some levels more challenging by adding humanoid beings whose brains were developed enough to become forklift certified. Unaware of what was to come, they began their hopeful little lives. Oh, you poor little things. Meanwhile, foreseeing that their lives would be easily ended by a gamer god like myself, I tinkered with the genes of my new creatures for a while. I must have gotten a bit too carried away while doing this, as I ended up creating overly powerful rhinos and mutant-like monkeys. I filled the tunnel part of the labyrinth that would take me to the final level with vitamin-deficient skeletons and quite unscary ghosts. The part beyond that with nasty pink tumor creatures, green gooey biomasses, and finally artificial brains called cyber cores. One of the two last levels, the permafrost zone, was to be the home of the great ice giants and their fragile towers made of ice bricks. These giants were powerful enough to send me to another realm with but a single shout. The very last level belonged to the demonic forces of hell and their dark twisted towers. Of course, this FPS game had to have a final boss, and it was this cute little dragon. Ha, you'd wish, buddy. Of course, it wasn't him. Wake up, have some tea. The monster was instead the mythical three-headed King Ghidorah himself. As I leaned back, various roguelike FPS and ARPG games came to my mind. I immediately grabbed a creature from each level and changed their color to blue, reminiscent of magical creatures that are usually slightly stronger than the mediocre ones in most of those games. I also strengthened them a bit by playing with their genes and gave them some light equipment. Then I cloned them and scattered them throughout the lands. Alright, so I had some magical creatures, but what about some super rare creatures that I had to kill in order to pass these levels? This time, like the legend Bob Ross himself, I painted some unlucky fellows yellow. By playing with their genes, I made them quite powerful, turning them into enemies that folks could write tales about. I didn't forget to give them rare traits either. Their equipment was, of course, much stronger than that of the magical creatures. I mean, they were rare after all. Which celebrity do you know of that goes around in their underwear, eh? Now, in every level, alongside the mediocre but progressively stronger creatures, there was one rare menace and more than one magical creature. To pass the levels, I had to kill these rare abominations, and as a final detail, I placed a monolith in each level. When I touched these monoliths, I could give my character a trait. Thus, as I overcome the levels, I would grow stronger and more resilient against future threats. When it came time to choose the most important part of my character's background, their race, I chose the most powerful beings in the world. No, not those egoistical cats who see themselves as the center of the universe, but the loyal dogs. To start the game week and be able to get stronger as I progressed through the levels, I reduced my stats to 0. I did change my character's color though. After thinking for hours about a name, I chose Woofy instead of Woof. Phew, that was a hard decision. My starting weapon would be a Glock pistol, and as I passed the levels I could get much better weapons to drop from rare creatures or just buy them using my loot. As one last detail, I cloned my character so that if I died, I would have at least 3 more attempts. Not that I would need any more attempts. I'm a professional terrier, buddy. The moment that I felt every detail was complete, I took my character and dropped him into this ant farm disguised as an FPS game. As soon as he woke up and looked around, I took over his control mechanisms to deprive him of having to make pivotal choices. As if I had been eagerly awaiting this moment, I immediately started hunting chickens and rabbits like a madman. I had to shoot everything in sight to level up and get stronger. Upping the danger a notch, I started preying on the magical blue rabbits that had magical bows. When I remembered about the monolith, I immediately touched it and chose toughness as a trait to be more durable. Ah yes, I've always wanted to be a tough dog. I strengthened myself by the number of levels I gained by playing with the genes of my character's subrace. You know, just like character attributes in other games. Then I continued on my path to empowerment with determination and firm steps. Sometimes the blue rabbits were so numerous that I even had to run away. While doing so, I was careful not to step on the disgusting animal droppings that I saw on the ground. I did not give up. I was not afraid, and I hunted down the wretched rabbits one by one. It was as if I had lost my mind and entered a state of frenzy. When I reached level 13, I decided to upgrade my armor every 10 levels. I also made sure to always allocate my precious attribute points. I generally focused on getting more attack power, armor, or health. While I was relentlessly hunting the blue rabbits, that yellow rare rabbit appeared. It had the audacity of challenging me, like a predator whose territory had been invaded. Although I tried to fight it, it was extremely fast. It was almost teleporting around like my whole hopes and dreams. It would even jump on top of mountains and shoot at me from up there. I couldn't let this Bugs Bunny-like demon mock me any longer. Therefore, embracing my cheater personality, I had to slow it down a bit. Seizing this opportunity, I also gave myself some attack power. Our relentless battle with this wretched rabbit continued without losing any steam. It was a pretty even fight now that he was slower. This peaceful flower biome echoed with the sounds of our eternal conflict. We were shooting at each other with great hatred and animosity. You'd think that we had a years-long feud or something. As I was starting to lose hope, the rare rabbit suddenly exploded into 100 pieces. I sent off this mighty foe into eternity quite honorably. At the end of just the first level, my attack power was 28, my armor was 48, my speed was 15, and my level was 27. Since I had reached level 20, I granted myself some bronze armor. I also stole the Uzi from the rare rabbit's mouth. I needed loot to reforge my weapons and make them more powerful, but for now my pockets were empty just like in real life. Feels bad, man. My fabulous character, however, was getting quite strong. Now it was time to break down the first of the walls between the levels and move on to the next one. This forest area belonged to hardworking cows and fluffy sheep. First, I immediately went to the monolith and took the strong trait that increased my attack power significantly. Then I declared war on these chubby cows and aiming like a pro, I wrecked them one by one. When I saw a huge rare sheep shooting at me with a pistol in its mouth, I focused on it and it blew up in no time. I snatched a powerful pistol called Malorian Arms from it. While I was here, I killed some more cows to grind some extra levels for a while. When I broke down the wall and entered the third level, which was a forest full of birch trees, I found myself in a long-range wrestling match with wild bears and cool wolves with guns instead of brains. While fighting the rare bear, it fell to the ground as if it had slipped on a banana peel, and when it couldn't get up, the poor thing just got absolutely destroyed. At the end of this level, I had reached level 33 and made myself a bit more durable. I also stole that sucker of a bear's shotgun. Well, it wasn't going to need it, right? The next zone was an immensely hot desert level. Before I went there though, I changed the age to the age of the sun to better reflect the heat. Just as I was thinking of taking a nice look around the desert and letting my feet touch the soft sand, rockets and bullets started raining down upon me. And in the distance, fighter jets were gliding while jeeps and tanks were roaming around menacingly. Still, I ran in with great courage, went to the monolith and gave myself some much needed fire resistance. Then I made a tactical retreat. Come on buddy, you would have done the same, alright? The bandits, befitting of their true nature, were still firing at me from behind. Here I used my totally legit call for backup card and an army of dogs came to support my cause. A huge war broke out. The bandits fought the relentless dog army in an environment reminiscent of a world war. The place literally turned into a battlefield game. Of course, I didn't just stand there like a sore loser. I dove in with my shotgun and started clearing out all the bandits and their weak buildings made out of stolen dreams. When the job was done, my loot was 4,902 and my level was 43. I also had a more powerful shotgun now. The mysterious level that lay beyond the desert was infested by some repulsive little pumpkin buddies that came out of super pumpkins. These rascals swarmed me before I could even get inside. The diseased soil covering the ground was also slowing me down. The constantly reproducing pumpkins just wouldn't leave me alone. They really wanted to hug me, I think. There was only one way to stop this pesky swarm. I used my loot to get myself a flamethrower. The moments following this purchase made me feel like I was in a satisfying pest extermination montage that put my mind at ease. By burning this whole infestation without any remorse, I was essentially destroying both the diseased soil and the clingy little pumpkin creatures. When I destroyed the viruses dressed up as wretched pumpkins, I got poison resistance from the monolith. My level became 69 and therefore my armors went up to the mithril level. My weapon was now a submachine gun that can easily be recognized by millions of FPS players worldwide. The Thompson. Next up were the cunning foxes and the fat giants protecting them. As a respectable gentleman, I had to teach these uncivilized folks who were raining bombs on me for some reason a valuable but final lesson. So I blew up their giant kings, removed the foxes from this simulation one by one and grabbed the disease immunity trait for myself. My level was already 75. It felt like I was getting too strong too early. My weapon was an AK-103. Before breaking down the wall and entering the rainforest, I changed the age to the Age of Tears, which would add a rainy atmosphere to the game befitting of the next next few zones. As I was running towards the forest with great confidence, animal droppings started raining on my head. 1, 2, and then hundreds of feces were raining fiercely from the sky. I think the giant monkeys here had a grudge against me, or maybe humanity as a whole. As an alternative theory, I might have forgotten to give them some weapons. Although I tried to fight these mutant and primitive monkeys for a while, it looked like it would delay this video's release date by at least a month. Therefore, I immediately used my loot to upgrade my own weapon and called in some bombardment support. As bomber jets flying overhead dropped napalm bombs on the rainforest, the environment this time reminded me of my time fighting in the horrendous Vietnam War in the game Viet Cong. When the entire rainforest exploded with scenes resembling the celebrations of football hooligans, I returned to my character and finished off the remaining monkeys with my beloved companion, my weapon. The level ahead of me was a nasty place boiling with acid and stinking of poison, and it was protected by some poisonous, liquid slime people. Luckily though, as if I somehow knew of this level's existence, I had chosen the poison resistance trait already. But when they threw me up into a mountain where I was terribly stuck, I entered a state of shock for a moment. Well, the rules weren't so strict, buddy. I was allowed to save myself and put myself back on the ground. Don't be so glum now. I fought valiantly for a while with these annoying scoundrels, but valor has its limits. I got myself a grenade launcher, with my loot of course, and set about redecorating every part of this poisonous biome. We can safely say that this place was no longer poisonous and slimy, but just poisonous. From this monolith I got the blessed trait for myself. This trait gave me quite a bit of power. I switched back to the AK as my weapon and continued on my way by drilling through the mountains. But as soon as I entered the new area, purple beams started raining down on me. There were so many that I literally couldn't get inside. The aliens with their long-legged robots, tanks, and blasters brought straight from the War of the Worlds movie gave me a really hard time. In the end, they cornered me and made me rethink about my life choices. But when I got my hands on one of their blasters, let's just say the turns tabled. Now, the aliens were so scared of me that they tried to escape in their UFOs, and I was just shooting up in the air behind them like a caveman throwing stones and spears at drones. On this bumpy road to success, it was time for everyone's favorite biome, that lovely swamp. Here there were walking and non-walking crocodiles, piranhas, and big-toothed worm creatures called garls. I fought relentlessly in this dangerous place for a while, but I suddenly found myself being rapidly bitten by crocodiles in a sewer-like smelling lake. Luckily, like those level 1000 bosses in mobile gaming ads, I managed to escape from there easily. Although this lovely summer resort of my crab friends warmed my heart deeply, I still had to go there during the age of moon and wreck the place to become more powerful. It was as if I had lost my inner voice. In this dark and foggy night, I blew up the crabs one by one with my alien blaster. No one was safe, not even these naive little crabs. Their foul, fishy-smelling buildings couldn't escape my might either. As I entered the lands of stone guarded by giant rhinos called Armoroks, I changed the age to the Age of Darkness. By the time I got here, I had reached level 87. I immediately used my accumulated loot to buy a minigun and reforged it to reach legendary power. Now I had a miraculous weapon in my hands that fired extremely fast. With this satisfying sense of pride and accomplishment, I entered the rhinos' den. I wish I hadn't, man, I really do. They caught me in a crossfire with their bombs, flamethrowers, and even gas-spraying weapons. I almost had an epilepsy attack. I still resisted them for a long time, but then the hunted became the hunter, and with my trusty minigun I chased them all away. I cornered their pure-hearted king and riddled him with holes like one of those piñatas filled with candy at annoying birthday parties. The next place awaiting me was this long tunnel straight out of a horror house. In this labyrinthine part, I would have to first fight with fragile skeletons and goofy ghosts, then with sticky biomasses and robots called cybercores. At the end of the labyrinth, I had to survive in the land of the ice giants. Finally, I had to enter this hell biome and challenge the demons and their ruler. I would have to stand before the king of all monsters, King Ghidorah, and defeat him. Without letting my hope fade, I continued on my way. First came the extremely fragile skeletons who had no sense of humor and cute Casper-like ghosts. Let me put it this way, they were the ones running away. Until a necromancer unleashed an army of skeletons upon me. But with a rush of adrenaline, I first took down the necromancer and then his dark minions. These slime creatures weren't as dangerous corridors as I had expected either, to be honest. Or maybe I had become so strong that I crushed them like ants and just moved on without a care in the world. Then when I got to the place of these pesky little robots called cybercores, life slapped me in the face with the truth again and broke all of my pride. They were firing at me so fast that I was frozen in place, unable to even take a step inside. I could neither advance nor escape. To eliminate this unfair situation, I intervened like the frontman from Squid Game and fired a laser from the sky. But even the laser didn't work, so I tried throwing bombs. Would you believe it? Even the bombs didn't affect them. I think I had created immortal monsters. Still, our ever faithful friend Mr. Eraser here did the trick, and I was able to reduce the number of robots significantly. Instead of destroying them completely though, I just reduced their numbers, and thus, in a fair fight, I was able to clear these labyrinth corridors and earn the right to pass into the land of the ice giants. These giants made it clear they were not very hospitable by immediately charging at me with their huge axes. Well, when that's the case, you just have to let your weapon do the talking, of course. As I was starting to struggle a bit, my professional gamer identity noticed that the giants couldn't step on the frozen lake. Tactically staying there, I rained bombs on them with my grenade launcher. Hey, that's fair and square, okay buddy? Unfortunately, I'm just very good at games, so what can I do about it, eh? The cold-hearted huge giants fell one by one like great oak trees, and the entire ice forest was engulfed in flames and thus slowly perished. Before entering the final level, I changed the age and brought upon the Age of Chaos. It was a crazy age befitting this final level. I had accumulated quite a few traits by the time I got here. My level was 95, my attack power was 216, and my armor level was 99. My armor pieces themselves are also top tier. Without much preparation this time, I ran straight towards the final level, for I was not afraid at all. The demons who noticed me started throwing beams of fire straight out of hell at me. I was also shooting beams at them with my brand new MIRV weapon, but it didn't really look like it was going to work, so I reached for my radio again and called for some support. Dog Army, this is Dog Prime, calling for backup, over. The loyal Dog Army, without even asking any questions, came all the way to hell for me with their tanks, rifles, helicopters, machine guns and their cute snouts. You see, if I had chosen cats, they would have never even entertained the idea of helping me. With the arrival of the mighty dogs, a great battle broke out. This battle was so huge that my computer was burning and turning its surroundings to ash like a charcoal grill. My game went into slow motion, and in the background I could see King Ghidorah. He was generating lightning strikes all around. In a short time, however, we managed to destroy the demons together with the dogs. Next up was their master, Ghidorah. He kept shooting bright yellow electrical beams at us. In opposition, I was throwing fireballs at him. Then the Dog Army took formation and went to challenge Ghidorah. In a short struggle, we miraculously managed to defeat Ghidorah. As I was celebrating this with my dog friends, a loud noise and a tremor erupted behind me. It was Godzilla himself. He was firing at us and blowing up the surroundings. Even though I immediately went to him and tried to slow him down, it just didn't work. And Godzilla, having gathered his energy, continued to fire at the Dog Army. Despite this, the unyielding loyal Dog Army swarmed Godzilla. They continued to fire at him with all their strength and technology, but it really seemed that neither their weapons nor their helicopters hovering in the air like mosquitoes were enough for this task. Godzilla, raising his energy to higher levels, destroyed the entire Dog Army in a short time with huge explosions. Now it was time to show Godzilla the power I had gained up to this point and tell him who's boss. Gathering all of my courage, I challenged Godzilla. This time Godzilla seemed to have accepted me as an arch-rival. He walked towards me. He growled and roared. He kept unleashing his blue electric beams on me. I never gave up and used all my bullets on him. This lengthy battle ended with Godzilla blowing up in a huge nuclear explosion. I had successfully finished this sandbox roguelike FPS survival game. To celebrate, like any sane individual, I fired into the air. I blessed myself with gold and mithril mines and danced here like a schizophrenic lonely dog for a while. I mean, that is kind of actually who I am. At this point, I had almost all the traits in the game. My armor and weapon were legendary, my level was 97 and all of my stats had reached a godly tier. My loot was 15,569 and the number of creatures I had killed had reached 2,600. I had spent hours in this 3D prison, overcoming every level one by one and had easily defeated the final boss. What a journey it was, huh? From a level 0 scoundrel running from wild blue rabbits to a legend who defeated the king of monsters single-handedly. Alright, that's enough. Let's go back to the Worldbox that we're used to. Oh wow, I adore your meadows, your grassy fields and your sandy deserts, buddy. So how much further can we push the limits of Worldbox? Or should we just accept it as it is? Who knows, we will surely discover the answer to this question one day. But that's it from me for today. Take care, buddy.